Well, good morning. I've been forced inside by the rain this morning, the remnants of Hurricane Ian, and we continue to pray for our friends and people in Florida who were affected by it. So we're just getting some rain, and I'm inside, but I want to share with you some things about missions. This is Mission Tuesday. Actually, this is Mission Wednesday, because yesterday I didn't tape the video, so you're getting this a day late. But it's still a mission focus. Last week we started to look at the missionary work of Jesus. We're drawing out some principles from that, and we come to John chapter 2, the first 11 verses. We know that Jesus came to save the world. And eventually in his ministry, the stage for him would be large. It would be the Sea of Galilee. It would be the temple. It would be on mountaintops. But at the very beginning, his world, Jesus' world, was pretty much like yours. His mother, his family, his friends, and now his disciples. Let's look at the scripture this morning from John chapter 2. I'll just kind of walk through it, not read it. But it was the third day, we read, and it was the third day, 2 days after he had begun to call his first disciples, Peter and Andrew, James and John. He had just barely started his ministry, so this is very early on in Jesus' ministry. And he and his mother and probably his brothers and his disciples were invited to a wedding, and Jesus went. And during the wedding, his mother informed him that they had run out of wine. She probably expected him to do something about it, to turn water into wine, for example. But Jesus at first replied, "What does this have to do with me? I'm not ready to reveal myself. Just getting started here." And yet Jesus did take water. The servants had put water into 6 large pots, and they served it to the people at the wedding, and it had turned into wine. And the master of the feast said, "It's the very best wine in the wedding." So that was it. And no one knew about this, only the servants who had put the water into the jars, and his mother, maybe his brothers, and his disciples. And we read at the end that his disciples believed in him. Now, we want to take away some things from this first miracle of Jesus. And Jesus did 3 things that we ought to do when it comes to the work of missions. Number 1, he saw a need and he met it. He learned from his mother that they were out of wine. And so reluctantly, it seems, he had the servants fill pots with water, and he miraculously turned it into wine. He met that need. And Jesus was always looking for the actual needs of people, not necessarily what they were asking for, but he would look to see what was needed. And we need to do that in the lives of our family and our friends. You know, sometimes we don't take the time to really drill down to see what it is that someone really needs. Sometimes we call them their felt needs. We need to learn to listen to people to see what they say their needs are. And then we need to see the need, and we need to meet it if as best we can. So that's number 1. He saw and he met a need. Number two, Jesus used what he had. Now, what he had in this story were 6 large pots, each holding 20, 30 gallons. They were used by the family for the rites of purification, to comply with the law, the purification of sin using water. But that didn't matter to Jesus, the fact that he was using holy pots, as some would say. But he was using them for a different purpose. He used what he had. In the same way he used the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes to feed 5,000 people. And there were other times when he would heal on the Sabbath, and the Pharisees called him out for that because The law said that you're not to do any work on the Sabbath. Well, Jesus said, you know what? The Sabbath was made for man, not the other way around. Man wasn't made for the Sabbath. Sabbath was made for man, and we can do good on the Sabbath. And so Jesus always used what God had given him at the time. And those of us who say that we can't do missions because we don't have enough knowledge, we're not comfortable speaking with people. First of all, let God lead you as to how to share your faith, either by example or by word, and believe that God has given you exactly what you need and use what you have. Be the person that God has made you to be. So Jesus saw a need and he met it. He used what he had. And then finally, most importantly, this morning, he began at home. At this time in the story of the gospel, Jesus' world was very much like your world. Family, friends, and siblings. You know, and your world may not ever get any bigger at this point in your life, and that's okay, because that is your primary place of missions. Jesus came with his mother, his brothers, his disciples, and in the end, I want you to notice that in this story, everybody at the wedding wasn't saved. In fact, most of the people at the wedding didn't even know that Jesus had changed water into wine. Only the servants, his mother, his disciples. And at the end of the story, we read that the disciples believed in him. Our aim in missions ought to be to begin with those closest to us, who love us, whom we love, and try to pray for and to live out our lives so that they might come to faith in Jesus and believe. So, missions begins at home by seeing and meeting a need as God allows us to. And by using what we have, the gifts that God has given us, the people we are. And then finally, to make sure we begin and never lose sight of those who are closest to us. So have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday, and God bless your day.